Hiya, I keep seeing people posting questions on the Headrush forums on Facebook, which is where I hang out because I'm old, about plugging their Headrush into a normal guitar amplifier and getting terrible results. There's a reason for that. The Headrush is designed to emulate or copy a guitar amplifier and a guitar speaker. So plugging that into a guitar amplifier and guitar speaker is doubling everything and not the way things are meant to work. But you can plug your Headrush into the front of a guitar amplifier. You just need to remember a few golden rules. The first one is never use an amp block, never use an IR, never use a speaker cab if you're going into the front of an amplifier. The other complaint I hear is that the Headrush suffers from tone suck. It doesn't. It really doesn't. You just have to get your levels sorted out, and that's what we're going to talk about today. The second half of this video is going to be about using your Headrush into the FX return of a guitar amplifier so that you can use the heads, the amps in the Headrush through a normal guitar amp. But we'll get to that in a minute. And I will be talking about the different ways the MX5 and the gig board operate in these ways. So here we go. That's my guitar, Gibson SG, plugged into the front of this amplifier, which is a Jet City HDM 100. It's basically designed by Soldano as a low-cost copy of a Soldano 100. It's a great amp, actually. You put decent valves in it, it's brilliant, built like a tank. But that's a guitar straight into it in the clean channel. So let's unplug the guitar from the amp. Plug the guitar into the back of the Headrush. I'm into the mono line out on the back of the Headrush and back into the guitar, same amplifier, 20% of the volume. And that is where I think a lot of people are going wrong. You need to put the master on 11. We're already in the ballpark, and in your input section here, this gain top right, give it 1.5 to 2 dB of push there. And now we've got a bit more volume to work with. What I usually do at this point is I turn off the noise gate and the noise filter because I like noise, and then I lock my input block, which puts that little red padlock on it there, and that means that when I step through my rigs, my input's going to stay the same. Why didn't you use the extra volume from the output block, Steve? I hear the more technical members of the audience ask. And the answer to that is because this volume gets saved with each rig. So this volume is great for balancing your rigs. If you've got one that's slightly louder than the others or one that's too quiet, you can fix that with this volume control and it will save with each rig. So that's what we use that for. So now we've got a bit of volume going into the amp. We can just use this as a pedal board. So what I've got here is just some drives just to show you how you can gain stage it. So you can, there's clean. That's a tube screamer, so we've gone a bit louder. This is a white boost. You hear that getting a bit louder still. Now if you really want more volume, that's a graphic equalizer with a dB of mid because solos love mid and 5 dB of gain. So you hear that give it a kick. So to hear them step off, so there's 3 levels of gain and 3 levels of volume there. So now if that's not good for soloing, I don't know what is. That all works. And then of course you can just bit of vibrato, bit of reverb with the clean sound that you're dealing with anyway, straight into the amp. So that's the Headrush as a bog standard old school pedal board. You're not going to use the amps, you're not going to use the IRs. The PA man is just going to dangle an mic in front of your amp, and that's how to deal with it into the front of a standard guitar amplifier. Now let's talk about plugging into the FX return. Okay, another way to use your normal guitar amp is to go in via the effects return. Now that's a slightly different method for users of the pedal board and the gig board and the MX5. Let's do the pedal board first and then we'll get to the other two. So in the pedal board, what you can do is you can go to your global settings where you've got something called the alternate output. Now that doesn't exist in the gig board and the MX5 as far as I know. But that's not a problem for them, as you will find out. In the pedal board, what I do is I set the source for the alternate out to the IR input. So that means when the signal gets to the IR input, it goes to the alternative output, which in this case I've set to the line out and the phones out. So I've plugged my amplifier into the line out, which means the sound's going to come through our normal chain. When it gets to here, rather than going through the IR and out, it nips out of the line out. It goes to the alternative output, the line out. To prove that, there's the guitar coming out of the line out and turning the IR on and off makes no difference, and it's going into the FX return of the amplifier. Now why would we do that? Well, because it bypasses the preamp stage of the amplifier, which is where the amp gets its tone and its distortion from. So we're just using the amp to literally amplify whatever the Headrush does and give us it through the guitar cabinet. So effectively we're replacing the IR with the power stage of the amp and the cabinet. The sound does still continue through the IR and it comes out of the XLR outputs as usual for the front of house. So he gets the pristine IR sound and I get the very loud on stage sound of the real amplifier. So how does this work? Well, what we've got here, I've made a rig that's got a Vox and a Plexi. So if I switch to the Plexi, that's coming straight out of the effects return into the effects return of the amp, and it sounds like a Plexi. Switch over to the Vox. And we've got the glassy clean tones of a Vox. So as you can see, this method is really powerful. You can change heads as much as you like, get totally different tone setups just by using the FX return of your amp, which is going to be fairly flat. So that's how we do it in a pedal board. One other thing, you probably noticed in the global settings that I could have the phones out set to alternate output. And that's how I usually use it. I normally plug it into the phones because that way you get to use the phone's volume control as your on-stage volume control, and the master is the PA's volume control. So you can fiddle with your levels in the middle of the set without annoying the sound man. Always a good thing. So, MX5 and gig board users, you haven't got an alternate out, so what do? It's really simple. You plug the wire that's going to the amplifier into your FX send. You plop an FX loop into your board like that. And now we're coming out of the effects loop and going to the effects loop in of the amp. And it works exactly the same. To prove it's working like that, that's now before the amplifiers. It's not picking up any of the tone of the amplifier. So instead of setting the alternate out to be the IR input, you just plop your FX loop after the amps and before the IR. So this now becomes your on-stage monitoring feed, and that's the out front feed. That's how I use mine live. It sounds exactly like a real amp on stage, and PA guys all like it because they get a clean sound through the PA. I can't think of anything else I need to tell you about this. No, see you in the comments section for the things I've left out. Cheers, bye.